been within our own organizations, our parishes and our schools, and also at the Catholic Center about this phenomenon. There's been concerns of, is this an opportunity for evangelizing? Is this an opportunity for risk? And we thought it would be a good idea to bring together people that were interested in it with a couple goals. The first goal is to maybe bring people up to speed on what this whole phenomenon is and maybe fill in some gaps, and then really kind of give some perspective based upon the Archdiocese as well as our parishes and schools, address some of the concerns about risk, and then ultimately open it up to the people that are participating on the webinar for questions and answers and comments. This is really meant to be a forum for discussion, a forum that we can begin a conversation and decide where we go from there. So without any further ado, I knew that there's a couple hands raised. In this system, you have the ability to raise a hand to ask a question or to get some attention from us as we're putting the webinar on. If I could ask people to direct questions through the questions function, which is down at the bottom of the GoToWebinar control panel, that will help us monitor and a number of us respond when those questions come up. So let me begin. So, all right. So Pokevangelization a relatively new term. I have to give credit. The first place that I saw it was actually in the Diocese of Green Bay, who actually has done a pretty nice job of providing information and answering questions and concerns regarding this whole Pokemon phenomenon. And what I'd like to be able to do is just kind of give you some information based upon kind of the history and the background of really, we'll call it Pokemon Go 101. So what is Pokemon? Pokemon was created in 1995, and it was really a media franchise managed by a company called the Pokemon Company. It was really a consortium between Nintendo, Game Freaks, and a company called Creatures. It really centered around these fictional creatures that exist called Pokemon, which also interact with humans, known as Pokemon trainers, where the trainers actually catch these wild Pokemon, these characters like you see in the upper right-hand corner, by throwing Pokeballs at them, capturing them, training them, and in a sense, kind of being able to use them to battle each other for sport. In '95, a pair of video games came out. Originally came out on the Game Boy, which was published by Nintendo. And frankly, for Nintendo, it is their second most successful game-based franchise in the world, only second to Mario. And the game sales have reached over 200 million copies. And why this is important to realize is that 2016 marks a 20th anniversary of Pokemon. And what that means is that we're talking about crossing generations. Not only is it appealing to young kids today, or being reintroduced to young kids today, but it also has nostalgia and background that is relevant to potentially older siblings, potentially aunt and uncles, or even parents. So this is something that's multi-generational, and that has also led to kind of the success that we're seeing and the phenomenon that we're seeing with Pokemon Go. So that's really the background in it. Pokemon Go is, although it seems very new, July 6th is when it started out. The origin of Pokemon Go actually dates back almost 4 years to a game that was created by Niantic, which is actually the company that created Pokemon Go. And the game was called Ingress. And Ingress was released in November of 2012. It's what they classify as an augmented reality, location-based, in other words, based upon landmarks or geolocations. And it's a mobile multiplayer online game. So if you think about it, it's utilizing mobile technology, which is relatively new in relation to technology. It's then augmenting geolocation points. If you think about Google and what Google has done for years, which is capturing locations of information, pictures of information, all sorts of data, what they've done is they've mined this data for specific geolocations, geopoints, and been able to use all that data to then wrap a game around it. Interestingly enough, they call these games exergames, focused on the idea of games that bring mobility and exercise to individuals. So this dated back almost 4 years ago. It came out in the iOS or iPhone mode about just over 2 years ago. The challenge with it is that it was hard. It was a little bit difficult to maneuver, and it didn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles worked out. But it was the footprint or the framework in which Pokemon Go has been built on. So with that in mind, although it is a new phenomenon for us, the technology has been out there for many years. But Pokemon Go, because of its relevance, because of its multi-generational allure, it has gone ballistic from a market standpoint. It is a free-to-play game. It's, again, location-based, augmented reality, which means it's taking reality pictures or your camera, and it's also augmenting that with characters and things like that. Still developed by the same group. It was initially released July 6th of 2016. It was only released to Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. Subsequently, now it's all across Europe, and it is in Asia. So this is spanning the globe right now as we speak. Players use mobile devices that are GPS enabled to locate, capture, battle, and train Pokemon. It only runs on Apple iOS, which is the iPhone, iPad type operating system, or Android. Pokemon are these virtual creatures, and I'll show you a picture of them, that appear on screen as if they were in the same real-world location as the player, hence the augmented reality. The game supports in-app purchases. That's also something to be aware of. You know, there is no doubt that this isn't just a free-to-play. They're using this to market and prepare and condition people to create kind of this augmented society, either to market future games, future initiatives, but there's also a commerce part of it where they can actually, if you want to, you can go in and buy coins and things like that to, if you don't want to go around and hunt for them. So if for some reason you hear of someone asking you if they could use your credit card so that they could buy some Pokemon Go coins, you'll understand that actually is going to be a true cost on your credit card. So this is an interesting factoid I wanted to share with you. This is Nintendo stock for July 2016. This is how real this Pokemon Go phenomenon is about. July 6th, the stock value was about $14,380 at the time in which this product was released. By the 22nd, Nintendo stock gained $17.6 billion US in market capitalization. So you can see the phenomenal growth within days, what happened in Nintendo. Interesting thing, though, is that Nintendo did not create Pokemon Go. So when that information came out July 25th, Nintendo's stock fell by 18%, which was an evaluation of $6.7 billion loss when it was found out Nintendo didn't create this, but Niantic did. So you can see that not only is this having repercussions in our communities and people walking around and people engaging, but it has real monetary effects on stock markets and stock evaluation. So you can see how volatile or how quickly something can change. So I'm going to talk to you I'll talk from Pokemon Go, kind of a primer. If you look at the little turtle character on the screen here, that would be a Pokemon. There's a whole host of characters that are called Pokemon. They all have different names. They have different powers. They even have different evolution statuses, meaning that a turtle may evolve into a much more evolved level of a turtle or of a character. And so it is something that's constantly growing and always moving on. But the idea is with Pokemon Go is to collect as many or all of these and to evolve them to their higher levels. And you do that through collecting and moving about the community. A trainer is actually these people that you're seeing that are walking around holding their iPhones or their Android devices in the air. They're the ones that are actually playing the game. Interestingly enough, I've seen, and probably all have seen this, but we see that there is no age limits to this game. I see people that are senior citizens that are playing it. I see really young kids. I see everyone in between. So the fact that it's nostalgic and people recognize Nintendo and Pokemon for having been around for 20 years, that has tendency to create this span of multi-generational connection. A Pokestop, which is probably what you're seeing a lot of people walking around the campuses or in your neighborhoods. Pokestops are locations of significance that have been determined based upon data from Google that actually is a place where they can come to get supplies. Here's an example here of a screenshot of a church, the Catholic Community Church at Relay in Arbutus. They're a Pokestop, but I'm certain that you have at least one, if not many, Pokestops on your campuses. Some may be a picture of the church building, some may be a statue, some might be a grotto, some might be the school. But what happens is people will come to these stops, and they have to be relatively close, within yards of the stop, for them to be able to get their supplies. And their supplies could be everything from potions to Pokeballs to capture these Pokemon, to eggs, which are Pokemon that will hatch eventually. All of this is based upon getting people out and moving around. You just can't, find a location virtually and visit it. You have to actually be within yards of these Pokestops. And the same is with a Pokegym. The difference of the Pokegym is that this is a place that you can actually battle. You can place your Pokemon in to try and gain control of the gym. Think of it as a place where you would actually battle with each other. And battling isn't blood and gore, but it is a matter of trying to outwit and outstrengthen the opponent that actually has that gym occupied. And the more gyms that you have occupied, I guess it brings more value and more credibility to you as a Poke trainer. In the third slide here, you can actually see this is a close-up of a gym, and you can see it's at the Westboro Baptist Church. But typically these are even more significant landmarks. These might be schools, these might be historical landmarks, things like that. And then the other thing to know is that with Pokemon is that there's actually 3 teams. It's not really significant except for there are 3 teams. One is Team Instinct, one is Mystic, and one is Valor, and you can see the colors that are associated with that. So let's give you a view of kind of a Pokemon view. Here's an example of a location. You can see this first image with the statue of Mary. This is actually a Pokestop in Arbutus, and they actually have the statue of Mary in front of this church that is a Pokestop. When you click on the image, there's actually a lot of times the name of the image, but there might also be historical significance or a write-up about that stop location. In the third picture that you see, where you see all these ribbons that are hanging up, this church actually took the effort to highlight their Pokestop. Since it was the Statue of Mary, and they have all these people keep coming by, what they ended up doing was they decorated the area with these flags to draw more attention to the fact that they recognized that this was a Pokestop within the Pokemon Go game. So what's been happening recently is that you're seeing the ability to generate traffic or bring traffic to a location. Within the game, they have things called lure modules, L-U-R-E modules. And these are modules that you can either collect, or if you were a business, you can actually buy them. And this is where the commerce comes in. But the idea is that you buy a lure and you set it up in a geolocation. Let's say it's your pizza business or your coffee shop, or maybe it's your youth ministry program that you're highlighting this Sunday. And for a set amount of time, typically 30 minutes, or you can actually buy longer, you can actually set up a temporary lure, and you can see the image right next to it, which is the girl in the ponytail, and you see that's a Pokestop, but it's decorated with all sorts of pink ribbons and rotating confetti around it. That means that was a lure that has been set up to draw people in. And in some cases, businesses are doing this to draw people in hopes that they'll buy pizza and a soda, or that they'll come and visit a program or something like that. The other side of it, though, is that what you have to be careful with these lures is that we've all heard the news that a lure can also be planted and used to draw people in for things that either draw people into. You've heard of situations where people have been robbed supposedly as a result of being lured into a location. But with this situation like a lure, it can be both for the positive side, but also it can be dangerous as well. That's why it's important, and that's why we have Tom Albin and others speaking about risk. The other picture of the portable canopy here is actually an example of an organization that actually stood up a temporary location to probably to market a situation, something that was going on, and they actually had set up extension cords and power charging areas where Pokemon trainers can come and get recharged and plugged in. So people are being creative about how they address this in their community. Talking about creative, here's some examples about what I would classify as church Pokevangelization. These are just ones that I had seen on the internet, but you can see looking for Pokemon or Jesus, both found here. You can see City Road Methodist Church Pokemon Go Gym, you're welcome. Visit us again on Sunday morning worship at 11 a.m. So they're using that as an opportunity to make people aware of when Mass is. And then the Brandon Assembly, we are a Pokestop. Get supplies outside, find Jesus inside. So some creative ways of how people are addressing this phenomenon and drawing attention to it, but also spreading information about themselves as an organization or as a church. So with that, what I want to do is to pass this over to and ask Sean Kane to be able to kind of speak with us about kind of what he has seen or heard from the Pokevangelization side from the Archdiocese. You can see here there's additionally some examples here of Bishop David Rickens. He's from the Diocese of Green Bay, kind of how he embraced it. But if I could turn it over to Sean, go ahead.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, Bill covered a good bit of it. My role is certainly support the use of this opportunity to evangelize and try and welcome those who are involved in this. And no one knows how long these phenomena are going to last. My personal impression is I think it will be relatively short-lived, but I think so long as people are showing up to your campuses, and this is what's bringing them there, I think it's best to welcome them and make them feel welcome. And two, maybe they came here for this reason, not knowing anything about what the parish is or does or has to offer, to use creative means to communicate what the parish's mission is, and that and what opportunities there are for people there. I've asked my office to create a couple of different sample signs that can be posted, and we'll send those around by email, and we're happy to absorb the cost of having those printed here. But obviously you can do your own, and Bill has shown you some of what's out there. The main thing is that, and I know Tom Albin will speak to the challenges of having people on campus in general, especially those who aren't familiar with it, that we want to try and turn, kind of a silly, a game into an opportunity to where people can find Christ, and that is not unlike anyone who is a visitor to our parishes, albeit usually it's in a much more intentional way that they visit with us. They're either guests of current parishioners or people who are just kind of exploring it as an opportunity. Here, where we don't typically know that they're there, these are people we know are guests. We know that they aren't parishioners and that they're there seeking something else, and so it's an opportunity for us to help them find maybe something they didn't know they were looking for. So how we approach them, how we prepare our staffs to approach them, should be done in a very intentional way, in a very careful way. And that goes both ways, because if we're too pushy, if we're too, it should be very general. It does not have to be overly specific, and in many ways it probably shouldn't be, because again, we're talking with people who really aren't there for the reasons why we're trying to engage them, and so they may be scared off or turned off in other ways. I think it's really a matter of welcome. You're here to play the game, and you're welcome to do that, but we'd also welcome you to come back and either come and visit us during Mass, or go to our website and look at the different programs that we have that you might be interested in. Assuming they're young, you can say we have a really vibrant youth ministry. Maybe even think about having a card or a handout in sort of like real estate agents would use, in a weatherproof box or something that's accessible to people outside during non-business hours, that is geared towards young people, that maybe includes the contact information for the head of your youth ministry. You can be as creative and as detailed as you want, but the main thing is to have a welcoming presence and a welcoming message that speaks specifically to this group, this community, and lets them know that it's okay for them to be there. Like I said, Tom will talk about some of the cautions, things that you should know, with people coming on campus, depending upon how your campus is laid out, or if they're trying to come into the building or into the church during Masses, which we hope wouldn't happen. Those are all things I think you need to be prepared to deal with, and to have your staffs prepared to deal with, even if it's a matter of them communicating, you're welcome here, but understand that this is a sacred space, and so we'd ask you to be aware of that, especially during services or Masses, because I know I've heard stories of people going inside. I think it's primarily an outside game, but I have heard stories of people, especially young people, who don't always know boundaries or respect boundaries, and if they're not religious, they may even be more unaware about just respecting sacred space, and that people come there for a reason. My office is, like I said, we're creating a couple of template signs that should be available as early as tomorrow, and we'll circulate those, and if anybody's interested in having those printed, we can do that. And then you might want to think about exploring options for ways for people to get printed information outside the church during non-business hours, so that if they're there after hours, they can take home with them something other than just a welcoming message.
Thanks, Ron. All right, there was a question that came up from one of our participants, and it was a basic question, which is how do you know if you have a Pokestop on your location? And I think that the only way in which you're going to be able to detect that is by either having the game running on, well, it's viewing it through the game running on a mobile device. Probably the most simplest way to do that is to contact or ask one of the parents of your school children, or even one of the school children, if they know that your location has a Pokestop on it, and where are they located. But literally, when you use your phone, you'll actually, as you're walking along, you'll see a Pokestop pop up in that augmented reality, and it'll actually show you the location. So you could literally have one of your youth, one of your adults, walk around with their phone and geolocate where the stops are and tell you what they actually say there. And that would be a unique way of maybe getting some of your community involved in helping you to address this phenomenon in your location, getting them a little bit engaged. So, okay. All right, so just wanted to do was then let's bring in a couple folks. I know that we have Father Austin Murphy, who has joined us as a panelist. We had asked him if he'd be willing to talk about kind of the Pokevangelization Pokemon Go phenomenon, and share kind of his insights on that. So, Father Austin, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Bill. Can everybody hear me? I think they can hear me.
Okay.
I learned about it really quickly, actually, after it opened up. I had no idea what it was about. I was too old for Pokemon even when it came out, but I quickly went onto my phone and downloaded the game because, like Bill said, it is free to download. And, you know, there's some permissions you have to give it in order to locate you and then be able to situate you within the game. But it's not too invasive, and provided you're not working for the CIA, I think it's okay to do on your phone. But I opened up the Pokemon Go application, the game, and I was at Our Lady of Hope in the evening and noticed right away that there were two of these Pokestops, one right on the corner of our property and one right outside of our chapel or church. So it was interesting. And while I was looking and seeing that, somebody walked up to me and said, "Are you cheating?" Because I was in my car. And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Are you playing Pokemon?" I said, "No, I just found out that this is a spot to stop." He's like, "Oh yeah, you're going to be getting a lot of traffic." So I was interested in that, of course, and realizing the opportunity of having intentional traffic, as Bill had said, coming to our campus. It was just too much to pass up. So a couple days went by, and I was talking on the online forum on Facebook with Forming Intentional Disciples, which is Sherry Waddell's book and the group that sort of forms around that. We were all talking about it too as an opportunity for evangelization. So a lot of us started making signs, very rudimentary and such. So I just made a little red and white Pokeball and a sign that went along with it and stuck it onto our chapel door, which is one of the stops, is inviting people, first of all telling them that they were welcome, as Sean said, and then also offering them the opportunity, if they want to text or email a prayer request. I put my number on there for people to have that opportunity to do it. And then the next day I let my deacon know that there would be this traffic coming through. If you happen to see people walking like zombies staring at their phone, it's not just normal text messaging, but they are actually playing a game. And it was an opportunity to kind of just start talking with them. while we were discussing that, a little boy and his dad happened to walk up. So we went out and talked to him, and the boy was about 5 or 6 years old, and he was excited because there was some kind of rat on our parking lot that he had to catch. And he was telling us all about the game, and he was explaining it really well, and the father was telling us too. I said, yeah, I know there's a stop over here. I said, and I introduced myself. I'm Father Austin. I'm pastor here. This is Deacon Herman. And we had a nice little conversation with them. It wasn't overtly and deliberately about, have you come to Jesus or anything like that, but it was an opportunity for them to have a positive encounter with, ministers of the church. So what as I reflect on this whole phenomenon, and I'm kind of with Sean about this as far as how long I think this will last, but again, this is an opportunity that's right in front of us. We've done no work to earn it, so it's like grace. And I look at this as very similar to Jesus' encounter with that woman at the well. She just went to the well that day just to get water. She was not looking for a religious experience. And yet Jesus was there, and he engaged her. And so this is more of an opportunity simply to get our foot in the door with people who are coming to our parking lots, to our campuses, to our shrines. They're not here for a religious experience. They don't care. And yet they do look at St. Luke Church. We have one right at our Mother Mary shrine, which is how it's labeled in the game. And that's an opportunity simply to say, hey, if you're here, why don't you say a Hail Mary, and here's a copy of the prayer. That's the kind of thing that we have to keep in mind, that what are we offering that Pokemon isn't? I come back to the fact that we didn't do anything to create this phenomenon. We haven't done anything to earn it. But we do have, obviously, our Ministry of Evangelization. Just one other thing that I would like to add. As I used to do the blog, that Jesus Goes to Disney World blog, there are dangers, I think, as far as ministerially from preaching Pokemon or preaching anything that's pop culture related. We run the risk of actually preaching the gimmick rather than the actual message. And I would say to anyone who's involved in ministry to be deliberate about speaking about Jesus. Pokemon may have brought them there, but you are there because of Jesus, and you are encountering them because of Jesus. So I would say, just trying to caution all of our ministers, stay on target. I think about it as when I'm preaching at the pulpit, you can tell a joke to get people's attention, but once you have their attention, what are you telling them of significance? So it's an interesting phenomenon. I'm interested to see where it goes. I hope people can stay safe in doing it, and we've tried to do our best to create as safe of an environment for people to come in here. It's pretty simple. It's a wide open parking lot, but again, it's drawn people out into the community, and I think it's also drawing us to them. So I welcome the opportunity. I think it's really been a great month so far, and we'll see where we go with it.
Great, thank you, Father Austin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll as a follow-up to what Father Austin Murphy had said, and really just to see if has your parish actually or school done anything to address kind of the Pokemon phenomenon. If you just go ahead and select yes or no, and what it'll do is just will tally up responses at this point. You give us some good feedback here. So I'm going to go ahead and share the results. 5% of parishes and schools have done something, and 95% of attendees have voted said that they had not. So we can see that although, as it's been mentioned, this is something that might be a fleeting moment in kind of the pop culture of things that are going on. There are some examples of people that have done some things out there. I do have a couple questions that came up. One question was, how are stops chosen if they're not using a lore module? Stops are chosen based upon geolocated data. It's believed that most of the data has come from Google, but it's also been based upon people that have used technology like checking in, or places of significance where people have actually posted in social media and other areas that they have actually been at a location. So you'll see areas like tourist attractions, malls, things like that, where it has the greatest traffic, will actually be ones that will have these stops located. Some of it is very significant. You can understand why, and some of them, like for instance, a statue of Mary, you kind of wonder, well, how did the statue of Mary end up becoming a Pokestop? But it all is all based upon data that has been captured. Most of it has been captured from Google, because Google actually owned Niantic before they actually split off, so they took advantage of a lot of the data that was captured there. Now I have another person on the panel, and hopefully he's available. But Joe Liberto from St. Joe's in Cockeysville. Joe, are you able to join us?
Hey, Bill. I'm here.
Great. So if you could, from your perspective, we just heard from Father Austin speak about what he experienced in his parish. Can you give us some insight onto what your experiences have been?
Well, we're just to give you a frame of reference. We're up off of York Road, pretty close to the corner stable, if anybody knows where that is. And we found that over the time that I've been here, that one of the unique challenges that we have is that we're not real close to residential neighborhoods of any size. We're in a fairly commercial part of the Cockeysville area, and we're kind of tucked back on the road. You don't necessarily notice that there's a church back here, but we're around a lot of places where people work. So when we first started noticing that we were getting these visitors to the property, and after we were made aware of the game, we started kind of informally talking to people as they were coming through our property. We have a gym on the property, which physically it's sort of between our cemetery and the rectory. So what I've found out in talking to a couple of people a little more at length is that we have a lot of people that work and they play the game on lunch hour, and we have a sense of when we could maybe hang outside and try to engage people in conversation. It really has. You think it's a lot of younger kids, but and they work for AAI or they work for some of the other places in the area. And a lunch break and it's a walk.
Joe, looks like we're experiencing some background noise. I'm not sure if anyone needs to mute their phone.
It's not on our end.
Okay. Well, go ahead and continue. So.
Okay. So we haven't been just as Father Austin was saying. We kind of came into this webinar a little bit late, and we apologize for that. But we came in as Father Austin was talking about it. We're not overtly evangelizing people. We're just basically reinforcing that they're welcome on our property. I gathered from the people I talked to yesterday that it's not always welcome on the properties that they're going, and we really wanted to reinforce that we are welcoming them to come and spend a little time. One of the other things we've considered doing is we're looking at actually having a little, like a prayer area with some flowers and a peace pole and maybe a little bench. It would be visible to the street where they are, with our street where they are, to kind of reinforce our our hospitality.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
I'm sitting here. I'm sharing the computer with Karen Osborne, who, if any of you saw the article in the online version of the review recently, we were both interviewed about this, and I want to give Karen a chance to talk if she wants to. I'm not forcing anything, but I just want to make you aware that we're sharing this connection at the moment, so we can both be kind of participating in the webinar.
Well, I've been surprised. I've been reading up on this quite a bit. Number one, I think I read somewhere that Niantic or another company is making a Harry Potter game off the same bone. So this sort of thing is not going to go away as fast as we think it might. It'll resurge. It's going to come up in waves, I think, as more people play, start to play games like this that are built like this off the same sort of data. And I forgot what the next thing was. Oh yes, and I've just been surprised at how many people will, for example, have their thoughts about churches reaffirmed when they walk up to a church and there's a sign on the door that says, please don't hunt Pokemon here. This is a sacred space. And although that obviously is very important, it's also sort of reinforcing the sort of thought of, well, I'm not going to come here. This is church. They're going to judge me here. And I think as welcoming as we can be, we should should try to be as welcoming as we could be to everyone. So just be aware that that's sort of a thing that is part of what Pokemon players are going through is, oh, I don't want to go to this church because they'll judge me, and that sort of thing. It's on Twitter. If you look it up, you'll see that it's actually a fear of many Pokemon players.
It's an interesting thing too, Bill. I think I've been here a while, and it's interesting to see how technology is factoring into a connection point, where a lot of times I think that it actually operates. It works more as a barrier for some of our parishioners to connection. That this actually is a way that technology to create the connection.
Right. Well, good. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I did just a quick 30-second story. I had a priest call me, and it was a priest that had been asking, what is going on with this whole Pokemon thing? Explain it to me. And I gave him, a 3-minute kind of run over about what this was and what I knew it to be. And that next weekend, he had interwoven it into his message of his homily. Again, not to be the center of, but as an opportunity to hopefully reach out to, a variety of audiences in the congregation that he was speaking to. And after Mass, he said that 3 families approached him, and one dad came up to him and said, I don't know anything about what you said. I don't know about this Pokemon stuff, but my 2 kids, they lit up, and they got so attentive to what you were saying when you were speaking, because you brought up things that related to them. And the father then thanked him for taking the time to relate to his kids in a way that they understood and drew their attention to it, because a lot of times the message that's delivered the kids aren't paying attention to because they don't feel that it's related to them. So just simply having woven it in, a 20-second citing of, or speaking about, Pokemon, made that connection for 2 young kids, but also it was very noticed by the parent. So that was kind of an interesting story there. What I'm going to do is I want to move to the whole issue of risk, because that's been brought up a number of times. And actually, Tom Albin's going to speak about this, but Tom, just to kind of just to set this up, we've had 2 questions online that have come up that I think brings to light some of the concerns. One is that a location had a large gathering one night around 9 p.m. driving around our parking lot, competing in a gymnasium adjacent to our property. I guess this was another Pokemon gym in the adjacent property. And the question was, how do we minimize risks from some type of accident that may occur from this? Other large groups gathered another evening and one morning. So I'm not sure, is a special lure or event more than just that there's this gym, the Pokemon gym, that's sitting next to them. And then there's a second question that came out. So one is the liability and risk associated with that. And then the other came from one of our schools, which is, as we approach school starting, I'm concerned how we balance an open and welcoming parish school community with the protocols we have in place for schools. Any thoughts or suggestions? So with that, I just gave you, I wouldn't say 2 softballs, but 2 issues. Maybe you can help out from there. And I need to unmute Tom. There you go, Tom. You're on now. Sorry about that.
Yep. No worries. Again, thank you very much for including me. Relative to risk management, loss control, limiting our liabilities, the most important thing relative to managing, if you will, this Pokemon phenomena is for parishes, whether you are engaging and using this as an evangelization opportunity or not, that you've chosen that it's just not something that your parish wants to do or finds it appropriate. The key consideration is every parish, regardless of your perspective on it itself, is to proactively manage this phenomena and the process. So, for example, I would encourage for those parishes that are welcoming folks on, encouraging the playing of the game. Certainly, it is important to make sure you're clearly posting, for example, that people are welcome, but you should post times, hours between which they are welcome. You should also post if there are particular areas restricted where you don't want them going. I think the concern I have is that with reality type of games, there is, kind of the phenomenon when you are on Facebook or different texting and stuff. It's so much easier to say things that you normally wouldn't say in person. And I just want to encourage folks to approach this management of this as if this were any other form of evangelization, wherein with the human contact, with people coming onto our property, that we are proactively managing it. That is the key component. Relative to limiting our liabilities, the key considerations relative to that perspective are, first and foremost, if you are proactively using this, whether you're using lures or just encouraging people onto the premises, the key consideration there is you have now heightened or made greater your obligation or duty to those individuals coming onto your property relative to ensuring their safety. So you want to make sure that if you're inviting them on, just as you would for your parishioners who come weekly, or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that your facilities are in good repair. If you are aware that there's a particular stop or site that is in a poorly lit section of your property, you want to make sure that you're addressing those issues. Relative to the folks who are kind of like, we're not sure we want to do this, we don't want to be unfriendly or non-welcoming, but we also don't want to encourage it, I think the most important message I have is, first and foremost, you do need to make sure that your property is posted as private, that it is for the use of the parish or the school, and that way you have notified or put people on notice that this is private property. If it escalates to a point where you do have concerns, if it's becoming disruptive, if, for example, there are issues arising, whether it's littering, trash, they're just causing difficulties with the flow of traffic, whatever the case may be. The key is to make sure you have your property posted as private So that way, if you do ultimately, and hopefully you would never have to, but if you did need to get to a point of involving law enforcement, you need to have your property adequately posted as private in order for there to be any enforcement action. And finally, and related to the whole question, we do share in that concern about with the coming up of school coming up shortly. And again, if a parish and a school are co-located on the same campus, I strongly encourage the parish and the school administration to work in collaboration relative to, for example, if you want to, again, use it to encourage folks and use it as a true evangelization tool, to, again, maybe have established posted hours that folks only come onto the campus after normal school hours. But again, the key is to, first and foremost, make sure all of your staff and those folks who may have reason to come into contact with these Pokemon players, that they understand and at least are acknowledge and know what the game is about, and that then there is a clear, delineated approach for your parish or your school as to how you want to manage this. I think it's important that all of your staff and others are aware of your approach, so that there's a consistent messaging from your parish or your school. And you just want to avoid situations where one parish or one staff member is, encouraging and inviting people on, and then you have somebody else who's chasing them off your property. So what I would ask you all to keep in mind, again, whether you're going to have this used as a tool or you're more passive about it and not using it as our outreach means, the key component of it all is you need to manage this as you would any other ministry and evangelization outreach to ensure that folks who are coming onto your campus are provided the safest possible experience while on your property. So hopefully that is of some help.
Great. Thank you, Tom. What I'd like to do is, now we've gone through most of the formal presentation, and given opportunity, we're running a little short in time, but to see if there's any questions. I know that we've had a number of questions throughout the presentation that we've tried to answer, but if there are any questions from the audience, what we're going to do is, and this is a danger, is try and open up the microphones and see if any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask. If you could raise your hand, there's a raise your hand icon in the tool. Then what we can do is turn your microphone on one at a time. Or feel free to ask it in the questions tab at this point. Okay. I'm not sure if that's an indication that we've done a thorough job or that we're not quite sure how to ask a question. So let me see if we can open up the microphones. Might get a little noisy, but any questions from the participants? I think Kathy, you have one? Kathy, let me just make sure I have your name correctly. Oops. Kathy Stegmeyer, did you have a question? No?
Okay, so just to be clear, I think I'm clear to it, but it's easy to get mistakes, and I don't want to make mistakes about this anymore. All of the
okay. All right, well, not seeing any, unless Kathy has a question, we're going to go ahead and wrap this presentation up, knowing that we just wanted to let you know that a recording of this has been made, and we'll actually be posting this recording. We had a number of people that were not able to participate in the at this time, but wanted to be able to review the content at a later point. So that will be made available, and we'll make sure that information goes out in the Archdiocesan Bulletin, which comes out of the Communications Office on Monday. Oh, looks like there's a question. Robert Daniels, did you have a question for us? You can go ahead and speak now if you can hear me.
I was just letting you know that I didn't have any questions.
Oh, okay.
Good job. Very good job.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the last waning moments? How about Maddie Meany?
How do I do? They unmute you.
You're good. Go ahead, Maddie. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. How do we find out about how to buy a Pokemon stop, and how much are they?
So, well, I think that I'm not 100% sure if you can even purchase a stop. I know that you can actually purchase lures, which are ways to draw them in, and you can actually do that. You actually have to be in the game. You actually have to have Pokemon Go on your system, and you can actually either acquire them through collecting them, getting through certain levels, or you can actually buy them. I will tell you what we can do is see about getting some additional information back out to you that would get more specifics and even share that with the group. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, looks like Kathy Stegmar. Kathy, did you have a question now? No? Okay. Anyone else at this point? Last chance. It looks like we have Kathleen Collins. Kathleen, go ahead and speak. Kathleen Collins, did you have a question?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. All right. Just saw a question mark. All right. Well, without any other further ado, I want to appreciate or share my appreciation to the panelists for being able to participate. We had Father Austin Murphy, Karen Osborne, Joe Liberto, Sean Kane, and Tom Albin. Thank you all for participating in this, and then also for each of you that participated in the presentation by listening and by giving some feedback and your questions. We appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Have a fantastic day.